Most men will live their entire lives never understanding what women actually want. They'll buy the flowers, they'll send the long texts, they'll do everything society told them to do, and they'll still end up confused, broken, and alone, wondering what went wrong. But 500 years ago, a man sat in exile, stripped of everything, and wrote down truths so dangerous that governments tried to burn his words. His name was Niccolo Machiavelli, and what he discovered about human nature, especially female nature, wasn't pretty. It wasn't romantic, but it was real. And today we're going to crack open that brutal, uncomfortable truth that most people are too afraid to say out loud. If you're not ready to have your entire worldview challenged, leave now. But if you want to finally understand the game you've been losing your whole life, stay. Because after this, you will never see women or yourself the same way again. Before we get into this, let me be clear about something. This isn't about hating women. This isn't about disrespecting women. This is about understanding women. And there's a massive difference between the two. See, Machiavelli wasn't a bitter man ranting about the opposite sex. He was a political philosopher, a strategist, a man who studied power the way a surgeon studies anatomy. He didn't care about feelings. He cared about patterns. He observed courts, kingdoms, marriages, alliances. He watched powerful men get destroyed by the very women they loved. And he watched cunning men thrive because they understood one fundamental truth that most people refuse to accept. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to what you represent. And that single idea is the key to understanding everything we're about to discuss. Now, Machiavelli lived in Renaissance Italy, a world of backstabbing, political marriages, poisoned wine, and alliances held together by nothing but calculated self-interest. In that world, if you were naive, you didn't just lose your girlfriend, you lost your head, literally. So Machiavelli learned to see the world without the comfortable lies most people wrap themselves in. And when you strip away those lies, when you look at human nature with clinical precision, you start to see patterns that are as true today as they were in 1513. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Nice. Here's the first thing Machiavelli would tell you if he were alive today. Being nice is not a strategy, it's a surrender. Now, before you get defensive, hear me out. There's nothing wrong with being kind. Kindness from a position of strength is one of the most attractive qualities a man can have. But that's not what most men do. Most men are nice because they're afraid. They're afraid of conflict, afraid of rejection, afraid that if they show who they really are, they'll be abandoned. So they smile when they want to argue. They agree when they want to disagree. They bend themselves into shapes they were never meant to take, all in the hopes that their compliance will be rewarded with love. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that it is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose between the two. Now, most people read that and think he was talking about tyranny. He wasn't. He was talking about respect. He was observing a fundamental truth about human psychology. People take kindness for granted. They always have. They always will. But they never take strength for granted. Think about it. Think about the relationships you've seen in your own life. The men who bend over backwards, who sacrifice everything, who make their entire personality about pleasing their partner. What happens to them? They get walked on. Not because the woman is evil, but because nature has programmed human beings to test boundaries. And when those boundaries don't exist, respect evaporates. It's not a conscious choice. It's instinct. A woman doesn't sit down and think, he's too nice, I'm going to disrespect him now. It happens on a level much deeper than logic. When a man has no backbone, something inside her brain registers him as unsafe. Not physically unsafe, evolutionarily unsafe. Because for thousands of years, a man who couldn't hold his ground was a man who couldn't protect his family. And no amount of modern civilization has rewired that primal code. Machiavelli understood this.
He saw it play out in the courts of Florence, Rome, and Milan. The rulers who tried to please everyone ended up pleasing no one. The rulers who stood firm, who had a vision, who were willing to make hard decisions even when it made them unpopular, those were the ones who commanded loyalty, not just from their subjects, from their wives.
So, here's the first brutal truth. Women don't want a nice man. They want a strong man who is capable of being nice. There's a world of difference between those two things. One is a choice, the other is a default. And women can sense the difference in seconds. Chapter 2. The Currency of Power. Now let's shift the lens slightly, because this dynamic isn't just about women, it's about people. Human beings are drawn to stability. They are drawn to certainty. They are drawn to someone who feels grounded in themselves. And that is what Machiavelli truly identified as power. Power is not dominance over others. It is dominance over yourself. The ability to control your emotions. The ability to walk away from chaos. The ability to sit in silence while the world around you demands a reaction. That is power. When any person, woman or man, interacts with someone who is internally stable, something shifts. They relax. They lean in. Not because of manipulation, but because emotional steadiness feels safe. The flood in relationships isn't just drama or tests. It's uncertainty, stress, misunderstandings, outside pressure. And the one who remains steady during those floods becomes the anchor. Most people don't lose attraction because they aren't good enough. They lose attraction because they lose themselves. They react impulsively. They beg for reassurance. They crumble under small amounts of pressure. And when someone sees that instability, even subconsciously, their perception changes. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. Perception shapes reality. The person who appears grounded is treated as grounded. The person who appears desperate is treated as desperate. This isn't about pretending, it's about becoming. And the moment you stop needing validation from others, not just women, but anyone, something powerful happens. You interact from choice, not from fear. And people can feel that difference immediately. Chapter 3. The one thing people actually respond to. We've talked about what doesn't work. We've talked about internal power. Now let's reach the core idea. People are drawn to purpose. Not obsession. Not arrogance. Purpose. A person who has direction in life carries a different energy. They are not waiting to be completed. They are building something, growing, moving forward. And when someone joins that life, they are adding to it, not filling a void. When you make another person your entire world, you create pressure. When you make someone responsible for your happiness, you create weight. And over time, that weight suffocates connection. But when you have your own mission, your growth, your discipline, your goals, your relationships become choices, not lifelines. That choice creates value. This is where most people get it wrong. They chase attention instead of building themselves. They over-explain, over-give, over-invest too early. And in doing so, they remove the space that allows attraction to grow naturally. Human beings value what unfolds over time. Depth revealed layer by layer creates curiosity, and curiosity sustains interest. So the real lesson isn't about controlling anyone. It's about mastering yourself, building emotional strength, developing purpose, creating a life so solid that anyone who enters it is there because they want to be, not because you needed them to save you. And here's the final shift. What do women want? What do men want? What do people want? They want strength they can trust, depth they can discover, stability they can feel, purpose they can respect, and connection that comes from choice, not dependency. Machiavelli studied power in kingdoms, but the greatest power has nothing to do with ruling others. It's the power of self-control, the power of self-respect, the power of walking through life grounded in who you are. Build that, and the rest changes naturally.